Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
April 16, 2020, the end of privacy edition. First up from Reuters, the tobacco giant British American Tobacco, BAT, for those in the know, has its stock price tumble more than 5% on the information released that it's an investigation of a criminal under investigation for criminal acts by the Department of Justice and OFAC for some type of sanctions violations. At this point, it's unclear what the violations could be, or rather are, but a 2019 annual report said the company had shipped tobacco products to Iran and Cuba, and that these operations exposed the company to significant financial cost. The Department of Justice and OFAC declined comment because of the open investigation, but BAT certainly has itself in a pickle now. Next up, the Tour de France is the one major world sporting event clinging to a summer date. Although the country remains on lockdowns, the stakes for cycling's prestigious event are crucial. Of course, every sports team claims the continuation of their sport is crucial, but the tour is currently scheduled to run August 29th to September 20. That's much later in the year, but holding the race in August assumes that there will be an absence of a second wave of coronavirus pandemic, and the French government will allow it to occur. If it does occur, it will certainly be the first major event back and a lighthouse that will allow all to see what's ahead. Imagining a 3-week race that draws 10 to 12 million fans to the roadsides is harder right now for the French to do so. And although I would certainly, everyone I think knows of my love of cycling, and I would be one of the first to participate virtually by watching it, but I certainly would not want to attend that event. And it's unclear what the French government would have to say about that event at this time. Next up, from the Washington Post, a story about Boeing and the U.S. airlines combining for $73.7 billion in stock buybacks, and now whether or not they're going to accept oversight from the U.S. government for their bailout of that inane financial acumen, and whether or not the monies will be utilized by both the airlines and Boeing in a prudent, reasonable manner going forward. Of course, Boeing has announced that it will not take allow the government to take any equity. It's not clear about the oversight, but clearly these organizations got themselves in these pickles before coronavirus came along. And finally, our lead story comes from the Wall Street Journal, and it is very Orwellian on how coronavirus is eroding privacy as technology to track and monitor individuals aim to slow the pandemic, but certainly raises serious questions about government overreach and how government will be able to not only track your health status, but have that information to a wide variety of agencies, individuals, and other companies, because certainly companies need to know who might be at risk for being a carrier, who might be at risk for getting the disease for the first time, or who might be clear because they've had the disease. So the end of privacy, as George Orwell predicted in 1984, certainly consistent with the Trump administration view of itself going forward. I hope you are staying safe, self-distancing, and isolating during this time. Thank you for listening. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.